Lee In-jik's Blood's Reign. Historical background and literary implications. 1. Introduction. The era of turmoil and literary response. Blood's Reign, 1906, is a new novel by Lee In-jik published shortly after Japan's protectorate over Korea, 1905, set against the backdrop of the scars left by the First Sino-Japanese War, 1894 to 1895. This work is regarded as a precursor to modern literature and a text that embodies the trauma of Korea just before colonization. At that time, Korea became a battleground for China and Japan, and internal chaos peaked following the Donghak Peasant Movement, 1894, and the Gaba Reform, 1894. Lee In-jik encapsulated this historical upheaval in his novel, emphasizing the tragedy of a small nation and the necessity for reform. 2. Historical context. The Sino-Japanese War and Korea's fate. 1. The outbreak of the Sino-Japanese War and the Battle of Pyongyang. In 1894, the Donghak Peasant Movement prompted China and Japan to dispatch troops to Korea, escalating into the Sino-Japanese War. The Battle of Pyongyang became a pivotal conflict, serving as a key backdrop for the novel. During this battle, the Korean people were trampled by the armies of both nations, with the Chinese army's ruthless plundering and the Japanese army's brutal suppression, leading to a refugee crisis. The family separation of the Choi family in the novel symbolizes this historical tragedy. 2. Lee In-jik's perspective, social Darwinism and reformist will. Influenced by Spencer's social Darwinism, Lee In-jik accepted the notion of survival of the fittest. He identified the causes of Korea's weakening as bureaucratic corruption and the contradictions of the class system, sharply criticizing the nobility through the character Mak Dong's line, "The Yongband ruined the country." However, his solutions focus on Western-style modernization and emulating the Japanese model, leading to the irony of his later pro-Japanese actions, e.g., supporting the signing of the Japan-Korea Annexation Treaty. 3. Analysis of the work. Structure, characters, themes. 1. Plot and symbolism of characters. The tragedy of the Kim Kwan-il family. The family is scattered due to the Battle of Pyongyang, and the daughter Okarayan becomes the adopted daughter of a Japanese army doctor. This serves as a metaphor for Korea's division and dependence on foreign powers. Gu Wanaseo's ideal. Okarayan's fiancé dreams of a federal state like Germany, reflecting Lee In-jik's aspirations for a strong nation, yet exposing the limitations of pursuing power without an ethical foundation. 2. Thematic layers. The horrors of war and the suffering of the people, the miserable lives of refugees and the sacrifices of women, such as Okarayan's trafficking, expose the inhumanity of war. Enlightenment reformists will, proposing a national salvation through education and Western civilization. Historical reflection. The question, why has Korea become a weak nation, serves as a warning against internal corruption. 3. Literary limitations. Idealization of the Japanese army. The Japanese army is depicted as having strict military discipline, which diverges from actual historical records, e.g., the massacre of Chinese soldiers in Pyongyang. Passivity of female characters. Okarayan's dependence on Gu Wanaseo and her father reproduces the fixed gender roles of the time. 4. Historical lessons. The pitfalls of worshipping powerful nations without ethics. Lee In-jik admired Japan's modernization, but overlooked its ethical deficiencies. During the Sino-Japanese War, the Japanese army massacred the defeated soldiers and oppressed civilians, leading to the later massacre at Lushuan, 1894. In contrast, the Korean people, exemplified by the Donghak Peasant Army, practiced humanitarian solidarity by protecting the defeated Chinese soldiers. What Lee In-jik overlooked was that community ethics, rather than mere strength, determine a nation's sustainability. To become a strong nation, ethics are necessary. The dream of Gu Wanaseo in the novel is trapped in the logic of power, ignoring Korea's spiritual assets. 5. Modern reassessment. The questions raised by Blood's Reign. 1. The dilemma of nationalism and imperialism. Lee In-jik's pro-Japanese actions illustrate the identity conflict faced by intellectuals in a weak nation. He characterized Korea's turmoil as Hell-Josian and relied on foreign powers, contrasting sharply with the resistance of the common people, e.g., the righteous army movements. The alliance between the Korean Empire Army and the Righteous Armies in the 1900s should be reevaluated as a national war against Japan. 2. The social role of literature. 2. The social role of literature. Blood's Reign serves as a bridge to modern literature and a prophetic text of the colonial era. This work continues to prompt reflection on the horrors of war, the dangers of worshiping powerful nations, and the value of ethical community. It highlights the responsibility of literature to engage with social issues and to challenge prevailing narratives. Conclusion: Learning from the Past for the Future, Blood's Reign is a literary representation of Korea's dual colonization by both China and Japan. Lee In-jik's limitations lie in interpreting the flow of history through a simplistic lens of power dynamics. However, his concerns remain relevant today. A nation that ignores the balance between strength and ethics, as well as the solidarity of its people, is ultimately destined to collapse. This novel stands as a warning that records the pain of a small nation and demands a humanistic reflection, serving as an eternal textbook for future generations. Through its exploration of historical trauma, ethical dilemmas, and the complexities of national identity, Blood's Reign invites readers to critically engage with the past and consider the implications for the present and future.